Sekunder. Nu. Hi, and welcome to this event and client webinar. My name is Katarina Moberg. I'm the CEO of AS3 in Sweden, and the topic for today is change management and performance culture. I hope that I will have my dear Finnish colleague Hanna with me, but we seem to have some technical problems. Otherwise, I'm sure she will join us in a few minutes. But the topic is really interesting, and I know there are many of us that are talking about psychological safety, and we will connect that to how you can build a strong change and performance culture. But just a few words about AS3. So we are a Nordic organization with different departments all over the Nordics. We were founded in 1989, and we are about 800 employees all over, and we work with what we call workforce transformation, helping people thrive within or without of the organization, making sure that everyone can perform at their best. We also have a global partner called LHH. So we do a lot of different deliveries when it comes to helping HR managers and organizations to make sure that their employees really do and perform their best. And we also, of course, have a Finnish colleague, Henna. I hope she will be able to join. Otherwise, we'll just get started with today's agenda. So as an organization where we work with workforce transformation, we handle workforce and dealing with the different processes, how you prepare for change, how you behave during change, but also how you can support afterwards. And dealing with change, we find that there are so many things you can do in order to enhance performance, but also making sure that people feel safe. Hannah, can you hear us now? We are still struggling with hearing you, unfortunately. Okay. The wonders of technique. But the agenda still is about how to create a strong performance and change culture, but also how to create real change. Not only having the theoretical models, not only knowing where you are in different phases, but how do you behave accordingly? How do you support employees in these different processes? But also, meanwhile, ensuring performance along the way. And then we will end up with a few tips from us to you. So let's get started with what is change and what is a culture of performance. And please feel free to join in on the chat. But when we talk about performance culture, it's very much connected to psychological safety, but there are other fundamentals as well. I found this picture on LinkedIn and thought it was really clever, but also something that's really kind of connecting all of the different parts. A performance culture is really very much about the individual being able to be themselves, to be included in the bigger picture, to feel that everyone is okay as they are, they can be themselves, that there are equity, that you can be yourself, and that you really have this kind of sense of justice, but also again being a part of a team where we have a bigger picture and that we as individuals are important in this way. Sometimes we say that we have a strong performance culture, but do we really? And how do we know for sure? So I know there are many companies working with these different values, talking about these different parts, but you can't really force these things on your employees. And sometimes we feel that you should be able to trust, or you should work with your self leadership, etc. But that's not really something you can demand. It's something that you build along the way, and there are different aspects of this as well. So when we talk about performance culture, is making sure that you have these different parts, and that you cannot really just think that this is something that will last. You need to work on it constantly. So again, when it comes to performance, instead of just making sure that people need to talk about that they want to contribute, make sure that they are included, make sure that they do have a sense of belonging, and not only to think about in these times in a hybrid setting when sometimes we don't see each other at work. So, how do you ensure this belonging and performance culture in times of hybrid work? If anyone wants to add something, or please feel free to write in the chat. But that's a big question of today. So, when you don't really have all the employees at the workplace, how do you ensure this sense of belonging? So, these are some factors that you can work on. And Kathy, are there any ads in the chat or any comments?
Not so far, but I will keep monitoring.
Okay, great. But that was a foundation when it comes to performance culture. So something that you can constantly look at, ask questions to your employees, make sure and ask questions about, do they feel included? Do they feel a sense of belonging? Is there also diversity among the employees? And equity, of course. So some of the factors as a foundation for performance culture. And the reason why we are talking about this topic today is that we feel sometimes that there's a huge knowledge for when it comes to managers. They have these great theoretical foundations, but how do you implement that in everyday work? And especially when you're doing organizational changes, sometimes those theories are completely forgotten. But one thing that will make a huge difference is that if you have this sense of belonging, if you include your employees in the process, there will be a higher grade of psychological safety, and there will also be a higher grade of engagement, and the results will be better on the bottom line as well. So let's look at the other picture that we would like to focus on. We usually work with this model called the Lencioni model. There are many models, of course, but this is a great model when it comes to making sure that before you talk about results, make sure that you have the foundation. So this is a model. It's quite simple, and it's also been criticized for being too simple. But that's the trick. Sometimes we hear companies talking about we want to create results, we want to increase the profit, etc. And that's excellent. But if you don't have the other steps before that, it's not really going to happen. So the foundation of everything is trust. And again, that's not something you can demand. It's something that you create by including people, making sure that they feel that they belong to something. How do you build trust then? It's easy to say, but then again, how do you know for sure that you have this foundation in your team? One trick is actually to. Hi, Hannah. We still can't hear you. We did another try. And if it doesn't work, we change the settings. I hope we can invite you to another session. Thank you so much. Bye-bye, Hannah. So when it comes to this model, it's about making sure that when people feel safe, when you have the trust, when you have the foundation, then you're also able to be yourself completely. You're able to have a sensible way of arguing, meaning that you can give feedback and that you feel trust when doing so. And that also ensures that you really have commitment in the team, and that you say what you are supposed to. You actually do what you're supposed to do, and that there's accountability in the results. So when you speak about psychological safety, it's about really ensuring the trust, making sure that you spend time as a team, And before you speak about results, make sure that you do these different steps. Again, if you don't have this healthy environment, there's no way you can actually ensure the safety of the team, and only focus on the results will make people just think about their own topics, and you will have something that's called the fear of conflict, where you don't really dig into things. So this is a kind of a checklist. Where are you in the team? Are you speaking about accountability? If that's not working, then go back to the lower level. Do you have the commitment? And if not, how come? And if you don't have the commitment, if you say you're going to do things, but you don't really do it, then go below as well. Is there something in the team that's being unsaid? And if that's the case, then go back to trust. Spend time as a team to make sure that you agree on the things that you need to do, especially in times of change. So, if we don't have the psychological safety, if we don't have the trust, then we add change in an organization as well. Then, of course, you can imagine what's going to happen. So then it doesn't matter if you have all these theoretical models, but if you don't have the safety, if you don't have the team and the trust, that's going to be complications. So when we talk about performance culture and when we talk about change, the first thing is really to ensure that you know why you're doing the change, ensuring the well-being of the team, even if it's tough. It's about understanding and checking in with the team. Where are they? What do they need in order to create a performance culture, but also adding change to it? So, this is a model that we really can recommend. You can just use it as a checklist and look at the different levels. Talk about these things. Where are we focusing? Is it about the results? Is it about the accountability? And dig deeper when it comes to these things. So, psychological safety. Let's look at another picture, another model. I know it's a hot topic, it's a buzzword today, but that's for a real good cause. Sometimes, again, when we talk about change processes, it's very much about saving money, doing cost cuts. It's about creating a new organization, for instance. In order to do that in an efficient way where people also thrive, even if it's tough, it's about psychological safety. So, what does that mean? Hannah is an expert on that, but I will try to make it as clear as possible. And I know that there are many of you working with this term. But it's about, again, being clear about the boundaries. So, this is where we are going to work. In order to make people feel safe, this is about clarity. It's about knowing what am I allowed to do. But also, is it okay to actually do something that's not perfect? Is it okay to fail? And of course it is. But that also means that you need to be vulnerable about it. So if there's something that's not working, talk about it. Make sure that this is a safe place where we discuss, we learn from what we do. And by doing that, we know that people thrive, people learn from mistakes. So as a manager, one thing that's really important to do, it's about put to the table the stuff that you do yourself that's not really working. Discuss it, be open about it, and ensure that this is a safe room where we learn from our mistakes. But it's also about giving feedback, honest feedback, where we really care about each other. It's not about saying something to be mean, it's about us learning from our mistakes. It's about ensuring that people feel safe enough to bring up ideas, even if they're not perfect. It doesn't matter. It's about knowing that I can think out loud, I can be myself, I can add something to the table. I once heard a Swedish comedian saying that one of their greatest success was made out of two really bad ideas. But they didn't really value them and just didn't even say that they were bad. They just said, that's one idea, that's another idea. Then it took 2 years. When they combined those two bad ideas, it became their biggest success. So, not valuing too much, but making it sure that this is a safe room where you are allowed to speak out loud. But it's also about making sure that everyone is heard or seen. I think we all know that in some teams people are really different. Some are outspoken, some are really shy and maybe not always have the need to speak up. But as a manager, when driving change, it's really about ensuring that everyone is seen and heard. It's about, again, making sure that it is okay to speak up, it is okay to give feedback. It's about learning and, again, being a part of a bigger picture. So, also being honest about when things are tough. Also, proactively seek for information, seek for input, making sure that when you see something or when someone is adding something, that you also monitor it and follow up on things. That's also a way of ensuring that what I say is important. And making sure that you take this into the agenda when driving both performance processes but also change processes. So this is a picture that we found from Business Forum Group, and I think is really good. And I will also recommend the book Amy Edmondson. It's called The Fearless Organization, and we will put that in the slides as well. Very good book about how you create psychological safety. It's not rocket science, but it usually never is. It's about creating the environment where you can really drive change and ensuring, again, that people feel safe along the way. So, performance management, where people feel included, where you have diversity, equity, but also where you create a sense of psychological safety. That's when you can really create and drive change processes. Because that's not about only creating a higher top line or a merging two organizations, for instance. It's about really putting on the hat as a change agent along the way. And change is constant. So think about, how do you lead your business as a change agent? How do you apply the theories that you know? How do you make sure that on Monday you really you really do drive change as a change agent in the organization? But also, how do the employees see themselves driving change? So let's look at another picture. This is still about psychological safety, and it's about the different motives that we have for uh, adding to the table. And sometimes we talk about the business, goals, etc. Really, really good when we drive change. But it's also about understanding that when people feel comfortable, when people have this inner motivation, where people want to learn and really perform, it's about making sure that people feel safe, but also that that adds to their motivation as well. So, in a team where no one's engaged, where people feel anxious and really don't want to speak up, you can have a guess what's going to happen. So, it's really about making sure that you combine these things: psychological safety, make people feel safe, but also create learning. We usually also speak about learning and unlearning. That's also a part of this, in order to drive change and making sure that people really perform and can thrive at work. So let's look at another picture. So when we talk about change processes and driving performance projects, for instance, it's really about understanding why we do so. I think it was quite interesting to see during COVID, where all of a sudden we could work from home. It took a couple of days, and a lot of companies adjusted to the new world of working because we had no choice. We also heard a lot of different management teams saying we've never collaborated better than during COVID because there was no option. So, if we are really clear about why we're driving change, why are we really doing it, and not only because we're about to save money or that we're going to make the organization more effective, it's about the purpose. So, speak about why for real are we doing the changes, but also try to answer the question why. And in a management team, try to really make sure that you have kind of the same answer to the question why, that you are aligned as an organization, but also answer the question why are we doing the change now? Why not yesterday? Why not tomorrow? What is the reason? And often there is a very good explanation, but try to make that very clear. And also ask the employees, do they get the purpose? Do they understand why is it now or why are we doing this? So make the story alive. But also talk about the effects for the employees. What will happen now? Of course, you don't have all the details, but by being able to say, well, probably we will work in a new setup, we will include you along the way. It's also a way of ensuring performance, well being, but also higher or bigger understanding for the processes. So, talk about why you're doing the change or the performance project, for instance. Why now? And what will the effect be? And I know that Henna is really passionate about the question. Ensure everyone knows what is expected from them individually. When we talk about psychological safety, the team, the setup, and the different changes you go through, it's about making sure that each individual feel included, that they are important to the process, and also know the boundaries. So this is where I have the mandate. This is what I'm expected to do, and these are my contributions. So if we speak in those terms, it's much easier to align that to the bigger picture. Feedback is another really important topic, and we could talk for hours about that alone. But if you want to create this psychological safety, if you want to drive change, it's really about making sure that we give feedback to each other as a manager, as employees, looking into the different behaviors. Are we doing what we did before? Or are we trying to make sure that we work differently, that we do things in a different way? Then use feedback as a tool. So, this is what we used to do. This is the way we're going to work in the future. Then, by doing this in small steps, it's going to be a huge impact, have a huge impact on the results. And again, when creating a performance culture and a change culture, it's about involving everyone in the process. It's about making sure that everyone feels engaged, that they're important in the process. And of course, we are advocates for coaching as a tool. Because as manager, maybe the time is that you don't have all the answers. But by including everyone and by asking the employees their thoughts, their contributions to the process, you will get a whole other sense of team engagement, but also clarity. So, by asking questions or by facilitating change on a daily basis, not only thinking about the theories, but using that as a way of implementing and giving feedback along the way. And when it comes to psychological safety, of course, it's about being able to look back into the process and saying, this worked well, this did not work, this is the learning from it. That's also a way of ensuring the safety of the team, the engagement of the team, but also lessons learned along the way. So, our 5 tips: be clear about the purpose, whether it's about change management, whether it's about performance processes, be clear about why you're doing it, why now, and the effects.
Katarina,
Mhm.
may I just pop in here because we are all very sorry that we were unable to to get Hannah online with audio today. However, she's sending you a message, all of you, and it fits quite well with these 5 tips. So if you don't mind, I can read them to the audience.
Yes.
So Hannah says she is sorry to everyone, but it's not her fault. So we are sorry that we couldn't hear you today, but maybe another time. And she would like to sum up the core of performance culture. It is really about balancing 2 things: ensure everyone knows what we are doing through a clear direction,
Mm,
what we are doing and why. And then number 2, create a culture where everyone has voice and can give their best potential to the shared work. And
mm,
leading this is a balanced way in the core of leading sustainable performance. Thanks to everyone.
mm. Excellent. And I hope we can invite Hannah again because she's really an expert on these things. So we will make sure that we set up another event for this for sure. So thank you, Hannah. But that was the 5 tips that we want to add this Friday, and we have other events coming up. So the next event is October the 27th. It's about the provoking title, Stop Putting Efforts into Your Talents. And we will explain later, of course. We will also have a digital conference where you can participate, where we'll speak about stress and well-being, a very important topic today in this time of hybrid working and a lot of change going on. So you're more than welcome to follow us on LinkedIn, follow us on our webpage, but also engage and sign up for this upcoming events. So I wish you all a very nice weekend and thank you for joining me today. And I'm so looking forward to inviting Henna to another session. So have a nice weekend and thank you.